It's roughly 50,000 years ago. You're sitting in a cave. No Spotify, no speakers, no algorithm recommending you another song you didn't ask for. Just darkness, a fire, and the sound of wind outside. And then someone in your group does something completely bizarre. They open their mouth and make a sound. Not words, not a warning call, not a grunt that means, "There's a lion nearby. Please run." Something else entirely. Something rhythmic. Something that rises and falls and makes the hair on your arms stand up for reasons you can't explain. That person just sang. And nobody told them to. Nobody taught them. Nobody had ever done it before, at least not like that. And here's the genuinely strange thing. You liked it. Everyone around that fire liked it. Because something in your brain, something ancient and deep and completely involuntary, responded to it. That response didn't appear yesterday. It didn't appear 50,000 years ago. It goes back much, much further than that. And the story of how it got there is one of the most fascinating, strange, and surprisingly emotional stories in all of human evolution. Let's start at the very beginning. Here's something that stops most people cold when they really think about it. Singing is older than language. Not slightly older. Potentially hundreds of thousands of years older. The ability to produce controlled, melodic, emotionally expressive sounds with the human voice almost certainly predates the ability to string those sounds into words with meaning. Think about what that means. For a significant portion of human history, we were making music before we were making sentences. We were expressing something with our voices before we had the words to say what that something was. And the evidence for this isn't just theoretical. It's written into the structure of your brain right now, today, as you're listening to this. When you hear a piece of music that moves you, the response isn't processed in the language centers of your brain. It's processed in the limbic system, the emotional core, the ancient part, the part that was fully formed long before humans developed complex speech. Music bypasses language entirely. It goes straight to feeling. And that's not an accident. That's a feature. That's exactly what it was designed to do. The question is, designed to do what exactly? To understand why singing exists, you need to understand the fundamental social problem that early humans faced. Humans are, at their core, intensely social animals. We need each other in ways that go far beyond simple cooperation. We need to feel connected. We need to feel like we belong to something larger than ourselves. We need to trust the people around us at a level that goes deeper than rational calculation. And for most of human evolutionary history, building and maintaining that kind of deep social trust was done physically. Primates groom each other. They pick through each other's fur for parasites. It's time-consuming and intimate, and it builds bonds that hold groups together. But here's the problem. As human groups got larger and more complex, physical grooming simply couldn't scale. You cannot physically groom 80 people. There are not enough hours in the day. There is not enough fur. So humans needed something else. Something that could create the same feelings of connection and warmth and belonging that physical touch created, but at scale. Something that could work on multiple people simultaneously. Something that could bind a group together without requiring everyone to be in physical contact. Robin Dunbar, the British anthropologist famous for Dunbar's number, proposed something genuinely radical. He argued that singing, specifically group singing, evolved as a form of what he calls social grooming at scale. When a group of people sing together, something happens neurologically that is almost identical to what happens during physical touch. Endorphins are released. The same endorphins triggered by grooming. The same endorphins that create feelings of warmth, safety, and social bonding. You are not just enjoying the music when you sing with other people. You are chemically bonding with them. Your brain is treating the experience as the equivalent of being physically embraced by everyone in the room simultaneously. This is why singing in groups feels different from singing alone. This is why religious traditions worldwide have independently arrived at communal singing as a core practice. This is why armies march in rhythm and workers in fields historically sang together and fans in stadiums chant in unison. It works. It has always worked. because it is tapping into something that evolution built into us for exactly this purpose. Okay, so singing has a deep evolutionary purpose. Fine. But when did it actually begin? When did the first human open their mouth and produce something that we would recognize today as a song? The honest answer is we don't know exactly. Sound doesn't fossilize. You cannot dig up a melody. The archaeological record is frustratingly silent on the specific moment music was born. But we have clues. And the clues point to something much older than most people expect. The first clue is anatomical. Singing requires a very specific physical setup. A descended larynx, precise control of breath and airflow, highly flexible lips and tongue, and a particular configuration of the hyoid bone, the small horseshoe-shaped bone in your throat that anchors the muscles used in speech and song. Neanderthals had a hyoid bone almost identical to ours. This was confirmed by a remarkable fossil discovery in Kabra Cave in Israel in 1989. That Neanderthal hyoid was structurally indistinguishable from a modern human hyoid, which means Neanderthals almost certainly had the physical capability to produce complex vocalizations, possibly including something like song. And Neanderthals diverged from our lineage somewhere between 500,000 and 800,000 years ago, which means the anatomical hardware for singing has been in the human family for at least 500,000 years. The second clue is musical instruments. The oldest confirmed musical instruments ever found are flutes. Not primitive noise makers, actual flutes, with carefully calculated finger holes, designed to produce specific notes across a musical scale. The most famous of these was found in Hohlfels Cave in Germany and dates to approximately 40,000 years ago. It was carved from a vulture wing bone. Someone took a hollow bird bone, calculated exactly where to place the holes to produce the notes they wanted, and carved them with precision tools. That is not someone who just discovered music. That is someone who already understood music well enough to engineer an instrument for it. Which means the musical tradition that produced that flute was already old when the flute was made. Potentially very old. The third clue is the most surprising, and it comes from somewhere you would never expect. Lullabies. Researchers studying music across human cultures noticed something extraordinary. Lullabies exist in every single human culture ever documented. Not most cultures. Every culture. Including cultures with no contact with any other culture. Including cultures separated by oceans and tens of thousands of years of independent development. And more striking than their universal existence is their universal similarity. Lullabies across wildly different cultures share specific musical features. Slow tempo, descending melodic contours, soft, smooth vocal quality, repetition. These features are not cultural conventions. They are not learned. They appear independently every time because they work. They calm an infant's nervous system. They lower heart rate. They reduce cortisol. They signal safety. And this means that the singing of lullabies, the specific musical behavior, is so deeply embedded in human nature that it survived every migration, every cultural shift, every geographical separation in the entire history of our species. Predates civilization. It predates language as we know it. It may predate our species entirely. Here is where the story gets genuinely moving. If we accept that early humans were singing, even in some proto-musical form, hundreds of thousands of years ago, what were they singing about? Not love, probably. Not in the romantic sense we understand today. Not politics. Not religion in any formal sense. Almost certainly, the first songs were about two things. The first was danger. Researchers studying music and evolution have noted that many of the most universal musical patterns map onto emotional states that would have been critical for survival. The sharp, rising, irregular patterns we associate with alarm and fear. The slow, falling, smooth patterns we associate with safety and calm. These patterns appear across cultures because they are not arbitrary. They are translations of emotional states that early humans desperately needed to communicate quickly and clearly to their groups. A song could warn a group of danger more effectively than words in a situation where there was no shared language. Could communicate urgency, direction, threat level through sound alone. Before language, this was not trivial. This was survival. The second was belonging. The act of singing together, particularly in rhythm, creates what researchers call entrainment. Your nervous system synchronizes with the people around you. Your heartbeats begin to align. Your breathing patterns converge. You begin, in a very literal neurological sense, to move together as one organism. This is why soldiers march. This is why rowers call out strokes. This is why children clap in unison without being taught. Rhythmic synchronization is one of the most powerful bonding mechanisms in the human toolkit. And it requires sound. It requires music. The first songs were about us, about this group, about we are here together and we are safe and we are one thing and we will survive the night because we are doing this together. Here is something worth sitting with as we close. For the vast majority of human history, singing was not a performance. It was not something done by talented people on a stage while everyone else watched silently. It was something everyone did, together, constantly, while working, while walking, while grieving, while celebrating, while putting children to sleep, while burying the dead. The idea of a passive audience watching an active performer is extraordinarily recent. For hundreds of thousands of years, there was no audience. There was only the group. And the group sang. Somewhere in the last few centuries, as music became professionalized, recorded, commodified, most people stopped singing. Not because they lost the ability. Not because they stopped caring, but because the culture gradually reclassified singing as something that required talent, something that should be left to those who were good enough. And in doing so, it cut people off from something that their brains and bodies have been using to connect with each other for potentially 500,000 years. The next time you find yourself humming while you do something mindless. The next time a song comes on and you can't help but sing along even though you're alone. The next time you're in a crowd and everyone around you starts chanting the same words at the same time and you feel something lift in your chest that you can't quite name. That's not entertainment. That's not habit. That's 500,000 years of evolution doing exactly what it was built to do. Reminding you that you are not alone. That there are others. That together you can survive the night. That feeling has been keeping humans alive since before we had words for it. And it starts, as best we can tell, around a fire, in the dark, with someone who opened their mouth and made a sound that wasn't language and wasn't noise. It was the first song, and somewhere in you, you still remember it. So tell me, do you still sing? Or did the modern world talk you out of it? Let me know in the comments.